Hi, this is Len for the Kindle Chronicles. Welcome to this week's show. This is episode 630 on August 28th, 2020. And my guest this week is Joe Lemay, CEO and co-founder of Rocketbook, which is not the Rocketbook that I remember from back in the 90s when it was the first ebook reader that I'd ever seen. I was very excited about it. It failed and the name was retired, and it became available for a brand new company that for the past 5 years or so has been making innovative hybrid products, notebooks that you write in with a pen on real pages, kind of plasticky pages that are erasable, but very nice pages to write on. And then you can very quickly with a smartphone get the pages up into the cloud. I've talked about this before, and I was really excited to have a chance to sit down with Joe by Skype this week, and you'll be hearing from him in the interview. In news, I'm going to talk about a brand new Amazon hardware product that's very exciting, Amazon Halo. And I've got a tech tip, which is about teaching our friend A to speak a little faster or speak a little slower. Let's get started. The news story which got me most excited this week was forwarded first by Garrett Riley and then several other listeners. I really like getting these tips because when something's hot, I'm likely to hear about it very quickly because the Kindle Chronicles audience is so plugged in and has a good feeling for what we like to talk about here in the show. This is a new product, Amazon Halo. It's been under development for several years, apparently, and this was announced yesterday, Thursday. It's a wristband for health and fitness, and it comes with a subscription service and a smartphone app. There's a good article that I'll have a link to by Christian Farr at CNBC. It does some of the things which an Apple Watch does. I've had an Apple Watch since the first one, or a Fitbit. I'm not as familiar with Fitbit. But one of the things that it does, which I think is unusual, is it tracks body fat percentage, and it's in some of the material about it, it's showing actual pictures of people and showing the body fat. This doesn't really appeal to me, but it's a 3D rendering of body fat. One thing I am interested in is there's a sleep monitoring aspect, and I think it has to do with sleep temperature. So the temperature of the body as you're sleeping, you wake up and you get some kind of a reading on how you slept. The really surprising one is that it has two microphones in it, and depending on the tone of your voice, it's following your emotional state and giving you information about, boy, at 11 o'clock you were shouting or you were doing something. This recalls James McQuivey, who's always looking into the future in a pretty insightful way. He was suggesting that at some point Alexa would be able to detect different emotions and might even be giving recommendations that if Alexa heard a husband and a wife raising their voices at each other, she might be able to recommend a book called Difficult Conversations, which is a book that Darlene and I are reading. Obviously, these get into privacy questions, and in the introduction of the device, there was a lot of talk about how the privacy of all of this information is going to be protected in various ways. If you trust Amazon and you trust these devices, you use them, and if not, you don't. Everybody gets to sort of decide. I'm pretty much in the let's try this, let's trust it, and see what we can learn from it. This is you can only get this by requesting an invitation. So I did that immediately, and I don't know how long a wait I'll have to be able to buy it. The initial, there's an introductory price of $65, and that is a 35% discount of $100. This is called the early access period. So if you sign up for you put in a request and then you're selected, then you'll pay $65, and that covers some of the monthly subscription cost because you're going to pay $4 a month. It's free for the first 6 months if you buy it, and then it auto renews at $3.99 a month plus tax. there are 3 different kinds of bands, sort of a gray, a pinkish, and a silver, and 3 different sizes, small, medium, and large. I ordered one for Darlene, too, just hoping it would increase our chances. I don't know how transferable it's going to be. In other words, if you get one of these and you don't want it and you want to make it available to me, I'd certainly pay for it. I hope that it's possible to make those kinds of transfers, and that if Darlene's invitation comes through before mine, that she will. She really has no interest in wearing this thing. She wears her Apple Watch and doesn't like the idea of something on the other hand. I think that's weird, but I definitely would try it just to see what all this information is going to be like. I'll have my Apple Watch on my left wrist and the Halo on my other wrist. The information that Amazon released quoted a vice president, Melissa Cha, Vice President Hilo. She said, "We did a global search to find the best experts. We found cardiologists, fitness experts, and people who had spent their careers researching sleep and wellness." This is pretty intriguing stuff, I have to say. The little image of it that I'm looking at on screen shows a flashing green light, which would be aiming at the wrist. It's sort of on the inside of the device. And I'm not really looking forward to a picture of me in tight shorts with my body fat identified. It tracks sedentary time. I think there's sort of a video game aspect to it, that it is going to give you points for healthy lifestyle. If you're not sitting around, if you're getting some exercise, you're going to be getting all kinds of information about this, which will probably be updated frequently. And this is like a whole new relationship with Amazon, having to do with intimate information about our physical health. I'm all in. I'm pretty excited about it. Parenthetically, I did another test of the Echo frames. Now, that's the eyeglasses that have Alexa built in, and I've got this tough problem where I lost the charger. So now I'm down to 20% of the battery, and when I get to 0, I probably won't be using it until December, when the extra cable that I ordered is due to arrive. But what I did is I took it out on a bike ride. And at first I was thinking this would be a great use case, because I like the idea of being able to hear music or information not by having AirPods in my ears. I've always thought that's kind of dangerous if you're riding and you want to be hearing traffic or noises which might signal safety or danger. But the sound goes into the bone of the head, and so your ears are totally open. So that was good. But what I found out is that as I was riding, and I was riding through Old Orchard Beach, which is kind of a busy resort even in the pandemic, and I had to just really shout her name to get her to hear my voice. And I could see when she was listening to me, when there was a blue dot visible just sort of at the top of the frame. So I'm riding along on my bike and I'm saying, "Alexa, Alexa, Alexa," and, waiting for her to be able to hear my question. And I tried, what's the next thing on my calendar, and tell me a joke. And then I settled into listening to the music. Now, I kind of liked listening to the music. I played some Beach Boys, I played some Stevie Wonder, and I'm kind of rolling along, and it's nice. But it's distracting. And I rode, 4 miles from here down to Pine Point, which is kind of the edge of a point along the shore. And at that point, I get the message that I was at 20% of the battery. So I think, well, okay, let's turn this off. And I rode back with no music, no jokes from Alexa, none of that distraction. And it was as if I had started the bike ride out there at Pine Point, because all the way back I was watching the road, I was aware of the wind, I was seeing the seagulls, and minding the traffic and checking the rearview mirror and feeling my body doing the exercise. And probably the first time trying the Echo frames, I was even more distracted than I would be. But it just left me thinking, I'm not so sure, because the bike ride was really where I thought it would be most useful to me. I don't really need Echo frames walking around the house because there are Alexa devices everywhere. I'm not sure I'm going to feel comfortable talking to Alexa next time I go back into stores. So it's very intriguing. It's the most intriguing wearable that I've seen come out of that preview of products that they did in the fall in Seattle. And if I was able to charge this stupid thing, I might learn some new things about it. But I'm at the end of my experimentation with it, and I'll resume it when I get the cable coming back in December. So maybe I'll get lucky and I'll get my Amazon Halo before that, so I'll have something to try out while I'm waiting for the cable for the Echo frames. For the tech tip, I want to demonstrate something which I read about at a website called the-ambient.com. The article is by Hugh Langley on July 8th. And it turns out that you can change the speed with which Alexa speaks. And there are actually 7 speeds. There's the one that is normal that you're probably listening to her speak at now. And then there's 2 slower and there's 4 faster. And the command is very simple. If you want to go 1 step slower, you just say Alexa speak slower, and then you'll go down 1. Then if you go down to the slowest one, it'll be Alexa sleep slower again. You can get back to the regular one by saying Alexa speak at your default or normal speed. Now I'm going to do a little demo of it here so you can hear the difference in these speeds. I'm going to bring my Echo Show up here and move the Yeti microphone so it's facing it. Alexa, speak slower.
Okay, I will speak at this speed from now on.
Alexa, what's the weather tomorrow?
Tomorrow in Old Orchard Beach, you'll see thunderstorms.
Alexa, stop. Alexa, speak slower.
Okay, I will speak at this speed from now on.
That's the slowest speed. And so let's go back to the regular one. Alexa, speak at your normal speed.
Okay, I will speak at my normal speed from now on.
In this article, it mentioned that people who use Alexa to read books, like if you're blind and you're reading your Kindle books by Alexa, sometimes it might be better to read it faster. So you've got 4 faster speeds that you can go. Let's see how they sound. Alexa, speak faster.
Okay, I will speak at this speed from now on.
Alexa, speak faster.
Okay, I will speak at this speed from now on.
Alexa, speak faster.
Okay, I will speak at this speed from now on.
I lost track. There may be one more. Alexa, speak faster.
Okay, I will speak at this speed from now on.
That's got to be the fastest one. Alexa, tell me a joke.
What do you call a baby turkey? A godlet.
I know 2 family members who are going to be delighted to this, Jake and Ryan, who are going to be coming up here tomorrow for my birthday party on Sunday, so I will try that. Alexa, speak at your normal speed.
Okay, I will speak at my normal speed from now on.
Little known tip about Alexa that I hadn't been aware of until I came across this article in the-ambient.com by Hugh Langley. Pretty cool. Time now for the interview. Joe Lemay earned a bachelor's degree in computer science from Cornell in 1999 and an MBA from the Sloan School of Management at MIT in 2006. He worked for 3 years at Nuance Communications, that's a Boston area pioneer in conversational AI, and in June of 2014 he co-founded Rocketbook, inventor of reusable cloud-connected notebooks. As you'll hear at the end of the conversation, that first Rocketbook that I purchased was completely unrelated. It was an e-book precursor to the Kindle created by Nouveau Media. That e-reader is no more, but the very cool name lives on in what I consider to be a brilliant technology marrying the joy of writing on paper with the power of cloud storage. I first purchased my first note-taking Rocketbook nearly 2 years ago. It was the Everlast Executive Size, and for a while it was my go-to device for drafting the Kindle Chronicles outline each episode. I'd like to sort of mix it up in my creative technology, so I have since then used the Remarkable tablet, which I've talked about, black and white, and my current go-to device for drafting things like the show notes or the show outline is the iPad Pro using the Notes app. When Rocketbook recently came out with a new model, the Panda Planner, I renewed my delight in the platform, so I was happy that Joe was available for an extended interview, which we did Wednesday, August 26th by Skype between his home in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and the cottage here in Ocean Park. It was a happy plus to find out that this startup has a Boston area genesis story, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking with Joe for this week's show. I'll mention one note about the audio for this interview. Joe recorded a backup of his end of the conversation on his iPhone using the voice memo app. This is something I frequently see if guests are willing to do because it gives us a backup. And in this case, we needed it because the internet hiccuped a couple of times. And when he emailed me the MP3 file, that turned out to be a really useful backup. So there are a couple of times you're going to hear a different tone to the audio, and that's where I've shifted to the backup that he provided. The Skype audio, when it's working, is better, but at least in these areas, it was important to shift to the other one just so that you can understand what's being said. I began by asking Joe Lemay about the first version of his Rocketbook, which you'd put in a microwave to erase the ink in order to reuse the notebook.
Our first product that we launched was the Rocketbook Wave, and the idea there was to, of course, I had this general idea that I wanted to make it easier to capture your handwritten notes in a way that was easier than just a scanning app that took a lot of friction out of it, but still only required your mobile device instead of a piece of hardware in addition. So while it did some scanning, proprietary marks on the page, like the 7-symbol system, would allow you to essentially control the internet with your pen. So with a stroke of your pen, as soon as you scan it, boom, it's instantly organized for you without you having to do what I call the share button shuffle, like press the share button, then find the folder and the subfolder, etc. Scan it in, instantly organized. But the notion was, well, now that you've scanned in all of your notes, really, why do you need this paper copy of your notebook anymore if you're moving to the cloud like I was? And so I started to tinker around and play around with various ways to maybe make a notebook that was reusable. Of course, one that might come to mind is something that's more like a whiteboard. That was one of the first ideas that wasn't completely novel. But then I started to play around with thermochromic ink and found that FriXion pens were pretty cool. Pilot was making them, and they actually are pens that have an eraser that, instead of just smudging it around, turn the ink clear, because the ink is thermochromic, and once the eraser rubs on the page enough, it creates enough heat through friction where it gets it above 140 Fahrenheit, turns it clear, and therefore the eraser is much more effective. And I started to think about, well, hey, could we actually make an entire book erasable? And how could we do that? And so, of course, with heat, right, and faster. So started to play around with that and wondered, hey, is it possible to actually take this and make a microwavable notebook? How awesome would that be? So that was the genesis of that idea, and that's still, it's not our number one seller by any means, but it was our first product.
Well, how does it work? Can you, like, if I have the mini or I've got the latest one, the planner, could you put in a notebook that had 20 to 50 pages in the microwave and it would eliminate the ink markings on all of the pages?
That's right. So you put it in the. I don't have one right here. I have others. The newer versions of our Rocketbooks here. But the way the Wave worked is you'd fill in your notebook, scan it in, everything's safe in the cloud. Now it's time to clear your notes. So you take your notebook. What you do is you'd put it in the microwave you'd actually put a mug of water on top of it as well. That was important because we found every microwave is very different. So we couldn't say, hey, put it in for 30 seconds or a minute, because in some microwaves, in a minute, you might burn up your book, and another one, it barely even erased it. So so the way it worked was we put a little thermochromic logo on it. You put a mug of half-filled water on it. Those were the directions. You put it in there, and you'd watch until that logo turned from blue to white.
Oh.
And the mug actually helped to make sure that it was all dissipated and slowly warmed up your notebook. Whereas if you put your notebook in your microwave by yourself, in some microwaves, parts of it might heat up and others.
Now, did it leave a little residue of water with no tint to it between the pages when you did that?
That's right. There's a slightly, if you looked at it, you could kind of see residue of the ink as it was laid down after it was all cleared, because it was still there but turned clear.
Yeah.
And you could even take it and pop it into the freezer, and it would all come back.
Oh, no. That's too good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The concept was straightforward, but being able to come up with the notebook that was universally erasable in pretty much every microwave safe, made sure we had independent third labs, test it, make sure that every coating we had was something you wouldn't mind putting in your microwave, that you're also making mac and cheese for your kids, all of that stuff. It took us really 9 months of suffering and trying every type of paper and coating, et cetera. Finally got one that worked very well. And that was a big feat. But during that process, we were playing around with synthetic paper, because if you get a menu at a restaurant, it's usually often like a synthetic plastic paper. And we found that the FriXion ink, sometimes it wouldn't write very well, but if you could write on it, it would come off very, very well. We said there's something here that we could come back to. And that later became what is our Rocketbook Core or Rocketbook Fusion. And it's an amazing experience. I mean, the pen glides on it so well. We've worked so much on perfecting the coating on the paper to make it a wonderful writing experience, which is not easy to do with plastic paper. And this doesn't, after you erase it with a little bit of water, it comes off perfectly. It's endlessly reusable, and it really delivers on that promise of being reusable in an endless way.
And you can clear the pages if you don't have your microwave handy, so it was more versatile use case, I guess.
Yeah, when we introduced it, we didn't know what would happen. We'd have the microwavable book and the Core, what's called the Core today, and the Core just took off. It just took off and made us grow by leaps and bounds, and very quickly became well over 90% of our sales. And now we've developed many different types of Core products from a mini product, various sizes, various colors. We've just introduced the Panda Planner, partnered with Panda Planner to make a planner version of Rocketbook, which is a really cool planner that doesn't just help you keep track of your to-dos and your schedule, but also helps to map out all of your motivations and goals to align happiness with productivity. And of course, we've got the Fusion, which brings together calendar elements, to-do elements, as well as lined and dot grid pages. And we're developing more and more products to deliver on all the requests from customers who like different styles of notebooks, as you can imagine.
Yeah, it's really endless, the permutations that you could take the technology to. And it sounds like you're pretty much guided by ideas that come from customers as to what to try next. We
do. We think that in our, whatever you call our industry, the handwriting industry, or notebooks or office supplies, we must be the most customer centric. We strive to be. When you buy your book off of Amazon or our website, you're using our app. We send everybody a survey so we understand how they're rating our app, what we can improve, and then we use that to improve our products continuously and then get ideas from our customers as well. And we're always just sitting and thinking about, we're just notebook nerds. I and the rest of the product team are just constantly thinking about how can we just make it better and better. And our next product is really sweet because it's also modular. And it's got magnets. And who doesn't love magnets? There's no other force in the universe quite like it. It's called the Orbit. So the form factor is a lot like a legal pad.
Yeah.
Right? But it's modular in that the backing of it separates from the actual page pack. Right? So I've got a dot grid on one side, a lined on another side, and just through the miracle of magnets, I'll just magnetically attach it. Flips there nicely. And what's cool about that is, if I'm writing and I've filled up this page and I want to, now I want to write on the next page, I can just flip it around to the back.
Yeah.
A fresh front page of the notebook all the time. And so this is a new magnetic ring binding system that we invented. And
what are you calling that?
This is the Rocketbook Orbit.
Rocketbook Orbit. And is that out yet, or when are you going to have that?
We did a Kickstarter for it, and it'll be delivered by the end of October for backers, and then soon after that out to our customers and Amazon customers as well.
I assume that you are a user, and over the years, the types of things that you've done to organize your own life have changed. But can you give sort of a start-to-finish use case of one of the Rocketbooks you're using and where you're uploading it, and then what you do with that kind of illustrates the vision and the concept? Sure.
Yeah, I've got a lot of Rocketbooks actually. I'm a little bit more spoiled than the typical user. But the way I've got it set up these days is I have one symbol set up for internal meetings. So when I mark the rocket symbol, that goes to an internal meetings folder inside of Dropbox. I've got another symbol for the diamond symbol set up for like external customer vendor meetings, things like that. One symbol set up sort of for my goals and aspirations. So whenever I use that, whenever I'm in my Panda Planner, I mark that symbol. As soon as I scan that in, I don't have to do anything else. I know it's right in the right folder inside of Dropbox, inside my planner.
So these all go to different Dropbox folders?
That's right. I tend to use Dropbox. I also have one set up that goes to an ideas folder in Google Drive as well.
Okay, and I was a little confused because the 7 symbols, I think I had the idea that I could only have one of them go to a Dropbox folder, but I could have all 7 of those just go to different folders within my Dropbox account. Is that right?
Right. So, I mean, one of the simplest use cases, or the easiest one to think of, is like a student, right? A student might only use Google Drive or Google Docs, but they'll want a math folder, they'll want a history folder, etc. And you can assign each symbol to a subject. So if I mark the diamond, scan it in, right? I know that will go right to my math folder notebook inside of Google Drive, and now I can submit that as a Google Classroom assignment and not have to worry about scanning it in, then choosing the service, then finding the folder and the subfolder, etc. It just goes perfectly to the right place, and then I'm off to my next class. So just removing that whole decision fatigue and that friction from making sure that I can keep the vast majority of my notes organized within 7 go-to spots. That's why we have this.
Right. And now there's a thing where if I title a note with 2 hashtags in front and 2 hashtags behind, the title itself gets transcribed into text. Is there also a way that the software can transcribe a whole note and that it ends up in text when it reaches its destination?
Absolutely, yes.
How do I do that?
It should be set by default to do that, especially if you have it sent to email, etc. If you are We haven't turned that on by default with whiteboards because the way people write on whiteboards we're still refining our OCR to kind of make heads or tails of that. But if you, by default settings, it should send it right to your email, transcribed for you.
The whole note.
Yeah, it should send. Oh. And if you're not finding that to be the case, because sometimes we're running tests on it, you might have to go into settings to turn on that.
Oh, because I'm seeing them in my own handwriting on the note, which I kind of like. But I would just go into a setting on the app and then switch it so that it's converting it.
That's right.
To OCR.
Yeah, and another thing to note is, especially if you have it set up as a PDF, sending as a PDF document, we embed the transcribed notes in the document as well. And we have like little invisible boxes so that, let's say you send it and it's on your computer. If you search on your computer, it'll find that PDF as well, because now your computer can index it, or Dropbox can find it as well.
Wow, that's powerful. Okay, so you've put some notes in one of your folders. What do you do with it after that? Do you print it out? Do you draw on it in preview with colored stuff? Or what's the final use that you put these things once you've placed them in the cloud using the Rocketbook?
I personally use sort of Dropbox as more of the backup version of it. But then I actually use the app, the Rocketbook app, the thing I scanned it in the history to go back and refer to it. I tend to like to use that interface because I know that all my handwritten notes are there. Others may do different things with it. So, for example, teachers, I've heard a lot that teachers are accepting Rocketbook assignments essentially. Then they open it up in an iPad, and then there's ways that they can just draw right over it in order to grade it, for example.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But really, we support most of the major systems that you can imagine. Google, Dropbox, even Slack, etc., so that people can integrate it with the workflow that they're already accustomed to today. But also use the scanning app itself and the history to have ready access to your notes on your device at any time.
I see. I came across something that on your website that really resonated with me, because you were talking about, how ideas can emerge through handwriting as opposed to typing, and I've just felt that, like when I'm putting together my show, I do a script each week, and I've always written it. I've used the Rocketbook for a while. I've used the Remarkable tablet. Now I'm using iPad Pro. I really like the notes. But in each case, the fact that I'm writing in my sort of illegible handwriting, I feel more creative than if I was typing sort of the ideas to put together one of these 45-minute shows. And why is that? There must be some science and some brain understanding, the link between the pen and the hand and the mind in terms of creativity. That seems to be sort of an important vector for your whole operation.
Yeah, I think you're onto something, Len. I think I agree. When I write by hand and when I'm in front of like a nice spaced out whiteboard, I just feel more creative and can more readily get those ideas out of my head and onto a surface where they can be laid out, organized, and I can start to interact with them mentally. There is some research by Princeton that I've come across that says that when people write notes by hand, they are far more likely to retain that information than if they were to type it. I don't know exactly why that is. I think, it could probably be traced back to Paleolithic cavemen.
The Lascaux cave art.
Right. It's just writing by hand, and in that way just goes back, hundreds of thousands of years, I would imagine, drawing and et cetera. So I think there's something about it that's more fundamental and enmeshed in our DNA in a way that, the keyboard, which is a relatively modern, imposition in our lives, is but it's definitely good for getting things out fast once you learn how to type. But really being creative and being freeform and being unconstrained to a strict typing in lines. That's something that just can't be matched by anything, I feel, like paper and pen. I also feel that it's super important for me for it to be unplugged. I don't want to wait for my notebook ever to reboot. I don't want to wonder if it's going to run out of batteries and have other things in it while I'm taking notes and pondering that are going to distract me, such as a notification. So our users really appreciate that while it has that bridge, that frictionless bridge into the digital world, when you're using it, it really is just a notebook, free of all of the modern interruptions and hang-ups of batteries.
I have a feeling handwriting is disappearing as something that gets spent much time on in school. I mean, the Palmer method and the whole thing. And I can imagine how the education industry might think, well, if we've only got a certain amount of time to teach kids stuff, we're going to teach them stuff that they can do on their computer. But if this really is a factor in creativity and ideas, I would think you'd be tempted to become a crusader to save script, save the Palmer method, to make sure that, our kids don't lose this. It feels like sort of a retro skill, but maybe actually it's something that's crucial to innovation in the future.
I mean, I'm not that familiar with the Palmer method. However, like, there has been an age-old debate or a new debate as to like whether kids should be learning cursive these days.
Right. And that's where you keep the pen on the paper for the whole word as opposed to writing individual letters. That's
right. And it takes, we all remember, well, if you're my age, we remember being taught cursive. I think it was on third grade or something like that for me. And it takes, it's a new thing to learn, right? I personally fall on the side that we could get rid of cursive, and I'd be fine with that. And we should spend that time teaching kids how to program computers. I'm all for that. I'm a technologist, and I think, modernizing and teaching kids to use these modern tools that are just absolutely incredible. And if you don't learn how to program, in this generation, you're probably at a disadvantage. Whereas I would not make that claim for cursive. And you might surprise you that I'm more of a technologist than a cursive enthusiast.
Right.
But I still think that every kid learns how to write by hand with crayons, how to draw, how to get those concepts out of their head.
Yeah, that's right.
I write in print format. I don't write anymore in cursive format because the cursive is illegible even to me. I think I need a little bit of space, but I think I still get ideas out of my head. I'm a programmer by trade. I'm a technologist. I study computer science, and I'm as tech forward as they come. But I never was able to give up my proclivity to pen, to paper, to dry erase markers, etc.
Well, that's interesting. So really the magic is the expressing yourself with the hand on paper or something like it versus the cursive writing. And so if the cursive writing, like you say, you could spend that time learning programming, you still wouldn't be giving up that place of creativity that happens kind of at the point of a pen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember when I started feeling, today we have a product called Rocketbook Beacons that helps people capture and share their whiteboards. And the genesis of this was when I worked for a company that is now called Nuance and does speech recognition stuff, and we partnered with Microsoft. So we were in Boston, and I was an engineer, a coder, writing a lot of code, and partnering and having to integrate with something with the coders over at Microsoft. And I felt like I had to get, even though we were both computer programmers, and that's what we did, a lot of the day, we relied on whiteboards so much to communicate, to ideate, to architect, and to work our way around abstract problems that we had to solve with computers. And I really found that I had to hop on a plane sometimes just to get in a room with engineers in Seattle to share a whiteboard together. That was just a fundamental tool that was not going away.
And let's explain how Beacon works, because I bought some of that. I haven't had a chance to try it yet because I don't have a whiteboard. But if you've got Beacon, how does the technology help using a whiteboard effectively?
So basically what you do is whenever you use our app, just like you can use our app to scan in a Rocketbook page, you can use our app to scan in any whiteboard, even from the steepest of angles, right? Very steep angles using our app. Really with Whiteboard, with Rocketbook Beacons, these are beacons that you put on the edge of any whiteboard to make it...
And they're like little triangles, so you'd put 4...
They're kind of like stickers, except they're endlessly restickable. If you ever find that they get dirty, you can just run it under a faucet, clean it off, and it'll be endlessly reusable as a unique gecko adhesive that always stays... it's almost like microscopic suction cups underneath, mounted on a silicone substrate. So these you can carry around with you, bring them to any whiteboard or leave them there. And the notion was we just wanted a drop-dead, easy way to make sure that no matter whether you had a little whiteboard like this that may or may not have a nice border or whiteboard wall, you could always capture in a perfect scan of that, and then get the capabilities of Rocketbook, such as smart titles and smart search, and the 7-symbol system to instantly organize for you. But there's also another feature when you use Beacons that's available to you, because we know that the whiteboard is a more collaborative surface, let's say, than a typical notebook. So we have a mode in it that allows you to, every time you scan in your whiteboard, it'll update a web view that you can share. So I can just give you a web link along with getrocketbook.com/129444, and you can be following along. And every time I update my board and scan it in, your web view updates as well. So it's almost like a Zoom for whiteboards, if you will, but it's in one direction. It's super simple, and it gives you a perfectly clear view of your whiteboard as you scan it in every time and update it.
You introduced that maybe a year ago, 6 months ago. Has it been pretty successful, the Beacon product?
It has. It's our highest rated product, I think, to date in terms of like Amazon reviews. It's I'll have to check what it is these days, but it's very close to 5 stars on average. It's been a tremendously successful product. And
what does it cost?
Yeah, I think it's retailing right now. There are deals and things like that, but you can get it for $15 or less.
Well, I'm also interested in sort of the creation story. You get your computer science degree at Cornell, and then you went to the Sloan School at MIT, and there was a Sligo pub in Somerville plays a role where you're sitting somewhere with your co-founder, and this idea dawned on you. Can you take me back to that event and place, and what piece of it was the genesis of what's happening?
I mean, ever since I went to engineering school for computer science, I've always been like totally immersed in technology and love just tinkering and playing with different concepts. And I'd always been interested in the idea of starting a company, but really never got around to it. I worked for startups and big companies like Salesforce.com. Et cetera, and building mostly enterprise systems that companies would install or to run either customer support or something like that were installed. And I was an engineer, and then over on the business development and sales side. But I noticed that everybody still was using notebooks everywhere. They tended not to find it culturally acceptable to pop open a laptop and take notes like that during meetings. That was rare and odd, and whiteboards were everywhere. And I always had a problem keeping and maintaining my paper notes in a way that was just, I was able to capture and organize all of my digital notes pretty well, but I would always leave my notebooks behind. And I remember there was a meeting once I had with a company when I was a sales rep for Salesforce.com. and I was selling it to one of their customers, and had a big meeting with the CIO of a sizable company, and had prepared a ton and had a lot of notes to talk about that would guide the meeting. And I reached into my laptop case, into my briefcase, my bag, and pulled out the wrong notebook that I hadn't packed, and that really stung me. I was really after that, I was determined to come up with something that was an improvement. So I tried regular scanning apps, but I found them to be kind of cumbersome, and I would always now have to organize them, and and that was sort of the genesis of the 7-symbol system. I tried tablets and writing on iPads and even digital pens and things like that, and they all had enough friction or battery problems where it just wasn't as something I could continue to adopt. So I stewed on this for quite a while. I was also stewing on the whiteboard problem because that was coming up. It would always be someone on the phone in a satellite office as we're as a group in one room writing on a whiteboard, and they couldn't really participate or follow along if we were using the whiteboard heavily. So that always mattered to me as well. So I started playing with an app, building an app that would scan in a whiteboard and transmit it in real time, and was kind of working on that when I had an aha that, wait, we should start instead with notebooks and scanning in notebooks first, and started to fall in love with that idea, at least the vague concept. And I was having a couple beers with my friend Jake at the Sligo pub in Somerville, Mass. It's a real dive bar, and
have they got a plaque over the table yet that says there's one at the place where the guy founded Staples? I think it's a Starbucks or something, and it said the idea for Staples started here. So you need to make sure that they suitably commemorate that booth.
That's that would be funny if they did. I don't know if they'd be up for it. They're kind of surly.
There would go their slacker reputation. That.
What kind of beer do you want? Sit down and have a beer if I suggested it to them.
So you and Jake are there. What actually happened there that's memorable between you and Jake?
We were just meeting for a couple of drinks. Jake has always been into entrepreneurship and trying to invent different things, and had some successes and et cetera. And I pitched to him the idea of what is now Rocketbook, and he jumped on it. He's like, I get it. I'm a notebook guy too, and we've got smart helmets, we've got smart shoes these days. You name it, smart bikes. Why not a smart notebook? This whole industry has been collecting dust. Let's dust it off and come up with something cool and innovative and unique. And we had a few more beers for sure, but we dusted off our hangovers the next day. We got to work right away. And, it's funny. I think it was really just about 2.5 months from that meeting to actually having $100,000 in well over $100,000 in pre-sales, because we had the concept big. We had to put together prototypes, make the product look, show what it could do, et cetera. But through the miracles of crowdfunding, we really just launched a pre-sale, which is a promise to deliver the product later, and people jumped on the idea and voted in confidence in terms of pulling out their credit card and making a pre-order. And I remember the first day, I think we got like $6,000 of orders, and we're like, whoa, that's amazing. And the next day, $8,000 of orders, and we're like, whoa, that's really cool. And the next morning we woke up, we had gotten an Airbnb in San Francisco for the launch, and we woke up, and then we both came into the kitchen from our respective rooms, and we're like, what's wrong with our phones? Because Indiegogo gives you a little ding every time you get a notification from each new backer, and our phones were going bing 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 bing. It was crazy. That day we did about $100,000 or $99,000 worth of orders in that one day, and then it just kind of took off from there. And we're like, whoa, wow, we have something here. It turns out we really need to work on this product, and and make sure it works well and deliver it to people. And there the saga really began.
Well, and fast forward to now, maybe pre-pandemic, you're a private company, but can you say how many employees you have or how many notebooks you've sold, or what's a sense of the scale that you've achieved at this point?
We'll sell somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3 million notebooks this year, give or take.
Wow.
We're even with COVID I think is impacting everyone's business for sure, and we're feeling it too. But there's still to our business, and our customers need our products more than ever. And our reviews and ratings are higher than ever as well, because people are really appreciating and putting to use a lot of the digital functionality through its paces these days. And we've got about 35 employees and growing. Mm-hmm. We've got a location in downtown Boston, a small location there, but most of our team now is, of course, working remotely. And the books are manufactured in Rhode Island and Massachusetts for the most part, so mostly all in the USA.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great ride. I love imagining those phones ding, ding, ding that day, and at that point you knew you had some work to do.
It was such a crazy day. It was one of the best and most exciting days of my career for sure.
What do you see ahead the next 5 or 10 years? Is there a way to describe where you go worldwide, or the technology evolves, or what kinds of direction do you see as the growth continues?
We're on a mission to build tools and to build tools to make it really helpful for anyone who writes by hand on any surface using any pen whatsoever. And of course, we are going to deliver a ton of physical products, notebooks, planners, whiteboards, you name it, that are not just cool, reusable, but also awesome in new ways, and push the boundaries in terms of what types of innovations people might expect in the stationery space, if you will. But all on with amazing technology, so that whenever you buy a Rocketbook, you can just sort of expect to have software upgrades continuously and new features that work with the app. Kind of like when you buy a Tesla. You buy the Tesla, and there will be some software updates, and the product will be getting better and better as you use it, right? So it's going to be a combination of developing physical technologies, digital technologies, and delivering them out to customers, and just and really, you can imagine someday as you walk down the aisle in, let's say, a Target or a Staples, a whole aisle of Rocketbook products that are relevant to people who are being productive and knowledge workers or students.
A lot of the genius of it is the name, and I had an original Rocketbook, the Nouveau Media thing, and that's when I became this is going to change everything. I had one, and I was waving it around at some arts meeting I was at, and so the Rocketbook is like a big part of my kind of ebook journey. They laid it to rest, but did you have to buy the name from them, or is there anything that you had to do, given that name had been used by that product?
No, I remember when I was doing research, I kind of recall there was a product called Rocketbook that doesn't exist anymore today. And no, we didn't have to because they stopped using it the way trademarks aren't like patents. If you stop using it and it's no longer registered and you don't keep it up, it's kind of a free-for-all. So I was able to use it, register it as a registered trademark of our company now. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to see the name lives, and I think you're the rightful holder of the name, because it's just a genius way to describe book. I mean, book is paper notebooks, and then rocket is just like to the moon, baby.
Yeah, I still remember I had a huge whiteboard of various names, and I'm like, Blaster Book, Team Book, this, that, and then I was Rocketbook. What do you think of that, Mimi, my wife? And she's like, that's it, Rocketbook. And then I had to Google to make sure no one else was currently using it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I have been speaking with Joe Lemay, co-founder and CEO of Rocketbook. Thanks very much, Joe.
Thanks, Len. Great to talk with you. Thanks for the opportunity, and I appreciate it.
That's it for this week. Next week's guest will be Brad Parks, author of Interference, which is available for pre-order with delivery September 1st. And for my birthday party, which is coming up on Sunday, August 30th, I have hired a band from Massachusetts, and they are going to be streaming up to the tent that we have next to the cottage here in Ocean Park. They created a private Facebook group titled Len's Birthday Bash. And I am not exactly clear how all this works, but I think that if you are interested in attending the live stream of this jazz concert, I can send you a link to the private Facebook group, and you'll be able to see it once they start streaming. It's scheduled to start a little before 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, August 30th. The group is called the Jim Robitaille Trio, and it's a terrific guitar player, bass player, and drums. They'll be playing some standards and some of their own music, and I did a test of it so that I could stream them to the Fire TV that we have here, which is a good size 48-inch Toshiba Fire TV edition. And sure enough, I was able, by using the Facebook app, no, not the Facebook app, the Firefox app, I was able to connect to my Facebook account and see them playing live down in southern Massachusetts near Brockton. It was a very exciting moment. And they're playing Sunny Side of the Street, my father's favorite song. I made a video of it and sent it to him. So we're going to have just a small group. It's all going to be socially distanced. We're going to be spread out from each other in a tent with lots of breeze flowing and wearing masks except when we're eating the lobster rolls and the birthday cake and the other treats that the caterer is going to bring for my 70th birthday. So please, if you would like to sit in virtually and hear the jazz at my birthday party, send me an email at podchronicles@gmail.com, and I'll get you fixed up with the Jim Robitaille Trio. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Bye.